This story is titled, My Boyfriend Vanished into Thin Air. The day before I was about to pop the question, and no one knew where he went. 5 years later, I overheard my sister talking to my dad, and I am stunned because of what they were saying. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying these stories and want to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the kind of person to spill my guts to strangers online, but I don't know where else to turn. The past few weeks have been an emotional whirlwind, and I feel like I'm drowning. So, here I am, writing this because I need to get it off my chest. I'll warn you now, this might get long, but I hope someone will take the time to read it, because I don't even know how to process what's happening. So, here's the thing. 5 years ago, my boyfriend disappeared. When I say disappeared, I mean he literally just up and vanished without a trace. No call, no text, no explanation. One day he was here, and the next, it was like he'd been erased from my life. It's been 5 years, and I'm still haunted by it. Let me give you some background first. I'm 29 now, but back then, I was 24 and madly in love. We'd been together since senior year of high school, so that's almost 6 years of dating at the time. We survived college together despite being long distance. He went to school 2 hours away, and I stayed in our hometown. We saw each other as much as we could, but it was hard. Still, we made it work. Or at least, I thought we did. Looking back, everything seemed perfect. He was my best friend, my rock, the person I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. I trusted him completely. I mean, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never thought for a second that he'd do something like this. The night before he disappeared, we were texting like usual. He said he was going to be late coming home from work, which wasn't unusual. He had a demanding job and sometimes worked overtime. I didn't think much of it. I just told him to drive safe and that I'd see him later. But later never came. I waited all night for him. I texted, I called. Nothing. At first I was worried. I thought maybe he'd gotten into an accident or something. So I stayed up all night pacing and refreshing my phone. By morning, I was full on panicking. That's when I started calling his friends and family, trying to figure out where he was. Here's where things got weird. His family didn't answer my calls. I tried his mom, his sister, even his dad. No one picked up. Then, when I tried calling again later that day, I realized they'd blocked me. Every single one of them. I couldn't believe it. Why would they block me when I was just trying to make sure he was okay? I reached out to some of our mutual friends, but they were no help either. Most of them claimed they had no idea where he was and suggested I just move on. Some of them even seemed annoyed that I was asking. It was like everyone knew something I didn't, but no one was willing to tell me. That was the first time I felt truly alone in all this. I tried filing a missing person report, but the police weren't exactly helpful. They asked me if there was any reason to believe he might have left voluntarily, and honestly, I didn't know what to say. He hadn't given me any reason to think he'd just walk out on me, but the fact that his family was blocking me made me wonder. After a lot of back and forth with myself, I decided not to file the report. Deep down, I knew he wasn't missing. He just didn't want to be found by me. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. I spent those first few months obsessively looking for him. I made fake social media accounts to try and find him online, but it was like he'd vanished into thin air. His Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything was gone. Either he deleted them, or he was using a completely different name. I don't know which, but the result was the same. I couldn't find him. Eventually, I had to face the truth. He wasn't coming back. For whatever reason, he'd chosen to leave, and there was nothing I could do about it. That realization was one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with. I loved him, and I thought he loved me too. How could someone you've been with for 6 years just disappear without a word? I tried to pick up the pieces of my life, but it wasn't easy. Everywhere I went, there were reminders of him. Restaurants we used to eat at, places we used to go. It was like I couldn't escape him. I stopped going out as much and even started avoiding certain parts of town, just so I wouldn't have to think about him. I didn't date for a long time after he left. I couldn't. Every time I tried, I'd compare the guy to my ex, and no one ever measured up. It wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me, so I stopped trying. For the past 5 years, I've been completely single. My friends think I'm crazy for still holding out hope, but I can't help it. A part of me has always believed that one day he'd come back and explain everything. But as the years went by, that hope started to fade. I started going to therapy about 3 years ago, and that's helped a lot. My therapist told me it's okay to grieve, even if the person isn't dead. She said I needed to give myself permission to feel the loss, And that was a game changer for me. I'm not saying I'm over it, but I've come a long way from where I was. Still, there are nights when I lie awake wondering what I did wrong. Was there something I said? Something I didn't do? Did he know I was planning to propose? Yeah, I was going to propose. I'd bought the ring and everything. I'll probably never know the answers to those questions. And that's the hardest part. The not knowing. The lack of closure. Anyway, that's where I was. Stuck in this endless loop of heartbreak and unanswered questions until 2 weeks ago, when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. But that's a story for another post. For now, I just needed to get this part out. After the initial shock wore off, my life fell into this weird kind of limbo. I was functioning, going to work, paying bills, doing all the normal adult things, but I wasn't really living. I felt like I was just existing, waiting for something to happen. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. Him to come back? An answer? Closure? Maybe all of it. The first year after he left was brutal. I was so focused on trying to figure out where he went that I barely had time to process what had happened. I was convinced there had to be an explanation, so I kept looking. I checked obituaries, news articles, even random forums where people posted about missing persons. I'd spend hours scrolling, hoping to find some trace of him, but I never did. I even got desperate enough to start reaching out to people who I thought might know something. Old college friends of his, former co-workers, people he barely talked to. I tried them all. Most didn't respond, and the few who did claimed they didn't know anything. At some point, I realized I was just embarrassing myself. I stopped reaching out, but the questions stayed with me. They never really went away. One of the hardest parts was dealing with my family and friends. They were sympathetic at first, bringing me food, checking in, making sure I wasn't spiraling, but that didn't last long. After a few months, the sympathy turned into impatience. Maybe it's time to move on, they'd say. Or worse, you need to stop obsessing over someone who clearly didn't care about you. Those words cut deep. They didn't understand. How could they? None of them had been abandoned out of the blue by someone they loved and trusted. I started to pull away from everyone because I couldn't handle the judgment. The only person I could really talk to was my therapist. And even then, I held back sometimes because saying it out loud made it feel more real. By the second year, I tried to push myself to move forward. I went on a few dates, mostly because my friends begged me to. They'd set me up with guys they thought were perfect for me. But every date was a disaster. Not because the guys were bad, most of them were perfectly nice, but because I couldn't stop comparing them to my ex. It wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me. So I gave up. That's when I decided to focus on myself. I picked up new hobbies, threw myself into work, and tried to build a life that didn't revolve around the hole he left behind. It helped, but it didn't fix everything. There were still moments, quiet nights, weekends, anniversaries, when the loneliness would hit me like a ton of bricks. Therapy helped me deal with those moments, but they never completely went away. My sister was barely in my life during this time. She's always been the more independent one. The golden child who moved to Canada at 22, got a great job, and built a life for herself. She'd visit maybe once or twice a year, but we weren't close. She'd check in occasionally, but her life was so far removed from mine that I didn't feel comfortable talking to her about what I was going through. I thought she wouldn't understand. Turns out, she understood way more than I realized. But I'll get to that later. I think the thing that kept me stuck was the hope. As much as I tried to move on, there was always this tiny part of me that thought he'd come back. I know it sounds pathetic, but I couldn't help it. Every time I heard a knock at the door or saw a random number pop up on my phone, my heart would race. I'd think, maybe it's him? Maybe he's back to explain everything? Of course it never was. By year 3, I started to accept that he wasn't coming back. That's when I began to shift my focus from, why did he leave? To, what do I do now? It wasn't easy. I had to reimagine my future without him, which felt impossible at first. For so long, he was part of every plan I made. Getting married, buying a house, starting a family, those dreams all included him. Letting go of that vision felt like losing him all over again. Then, there was the anger. I hadn't felt much of it in the beginning because I was too busy being sad and confused. But as time went on, the sadness turned into rage. How dare he leave without an explanation? How dare he make me feel like I wasn't worth a conversation? I wanted to scream at him, to make him see what he'd done to me, but I couldn't. He was gone, and I had no way to reach him. The anger just sat there, simmering under the surface. Year 4 was when I finally started to feel like myself again. Therapy was a big part of that. My therapist helped me see that his disappearance wasn't about me. It was about him. She said people leave for all kinds of reasons, and most of the time, those reasons have nothing to do with the person they're leaving. It didn't make the pain go away, but it helped me stop blaming myself. By the time year 5 rolled around, I thought I'd reached a place of acceptance. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was okay. I had a routine, a support system, even if it was small, and a life that felt stable. I still thought about him sometimes, but it didn't consume me the way it used to. I thought I was finally moving on. And then 2 weeks ago happened. Let me set the scene. My dad's house is usually this quiet, comforting place. It smells like old books and my mom's lavender candles, the kind of place where you can feel safe. But that day, it felt suffocating. I had gone over to drop off some soup for my mom because she said she'd be late getting home, and I have a spare key, so I let myself in. I was about to head to my dad's room to check on him when I heard voices. My dad and my sister, who had been staying with him since he got sick, were talking. At first, I wasn't paying attention, but then my dad said a name I hadn't heard in years. His name. My ex's name is pretty unique, one of those names that sticks with you because it's not something you hear every day. There was no mistaking it, and my body just froze. My dad asked her when she was bringing her and the kids down because he wanted to see them while he still could. Her and the kids. That phrase hit me like a freight train. Then my sister said something that stopped my heart. She said they were trying to figure out a way to bring them here without alerting me. Without alerting me. It's hard to explain what it felt like hearing that. My body felt hot and cold at the same time, and my brain was racing to put the pieces together. But deep down, I already knew. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, plain as day. I left without making a sound. I don't even remember driving home. My mind was a mess of half-formed thoughts and emotions I couldn't name. By the time I got back to my apartment, I knew I needed answers. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right then. For years, I'd been focused on finding him. It never occurred to me to look for her. My sister always said she wasn't on social media, that she hated it and didn't want anything to do with it. I'd never questioned that. But that night, something told me to look. I pulled out one of the old fake accounts I'd used to search for him years ago and typed in her nickname. Not her real name, her nickname, the one only family uses. And there it was. An Instagram account with her picture. Public. Around 200 followers. The first photo I clicked on was of her at a park, holding a little boy. He couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old, with dark hair and bright eyes. My heart sank when I noticed his eyes. They were hers. But his face? His face was a mirror of my ex's. I kept scrolling, my hands trembling. The further I went, the worse it got. Picture after picture of her with him, my ex. Smiling, holding hands, looking every bit like a happy little family. In one picture, he had his arm around her, and the caption read, "My forever." I can't describe what I felt in that moment. Rage? Betrayal? Grief? It was like my heart was being ripped out all over again. But this time, it wasn't just him. It was her, my sister. I stared at those photos for what felt like hours, scrolling back years. There were pictures of them at her wedding, their wedding, pictures of them at the hospital when their son was born, pictures of my parents visiting them in Canada, smiling like nothing was wrong. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My entire family had been lying to me. For 5 years, they had kept this secret, pretending to support me while they helped her build a life with the man who abandoned me. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then, somewhere in the middle of the night, the sadness turned to anger. I didn't just want answers. I needed them. I sent a single message to everyone involved, my parents, my sister, and even my ex. It wasn't long or dramatic, just one line. I know what you did. Why? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for their responses. My ex was the first to reply, and his message still makes my blood boil when I think about it. He said that contacting him was inappropriate, and that neither he nor my sister owed me anything. He told me to move on and stop being a creep. He even had the audacity to say that if I couldn't move on after 5 years, then I was the problem, not them. My parents didn't reply right away, but my sister did. She tried to justify it, saying that they fell in love and couldn't help it. She claimed they'd wanted to tell me but didn't know how, so they decided it was better to keep it a secret. Better for who? I don't know. Certainly not me. By the time my parents responded, I was already done. Their messages were full of apologies and excuses, but none of it mattered. They knew what they were doing. They made a choice to betray me, and now they were dealing with the fallout. I haven't spoken to any of them since that night. I blocked my ex and my sister on everything, and I haven't opened any more messages from my parents. Right now, I don't even know if I want to. The worst part is, I don't know where to go from here. I've spent so much of my life feeling alone, but this is a new level of isolation. The people I should have been able to trust most in the world are the ones who hurt me the deepest. I don't know what comes next, but I do know one thing. I'm done being their fool. I'll update when I figure out my next steps. For now, I just need to breathe. Thanks for listening. Update 1 point. Hey Reddit, I've had some time to sit with everything that's happened, but honestly, I'm not sure if that's made it better or worse. After sending that one-liner message to my family and my ex, I thought I'd feel something. Relief, maybe? Closure? But instead it felt like I had opened Pandora's box, and every reply I got just added to the chaos in my head. Let's start with my sister. She showed up at my apartment 2 days after I sent the message. I wasn't surprised. If anything, I was expecting it. She always had this way of pushing herself into situations where she didn't belong, acting like she could fix everything with her words. But when I saw her standing outside my door with that look on her face, half guilt, half irritation, I didn't even want to hear what she had to say. She knocked for a solid 5 minutes, calling my name and begging me to let her in. I didn't budge. I stood just out of sight, leaning against the wall, listening to her voice, as it wavered between apologetic and annoyed. She kept saying things like, "You need to understand it wasn't personal," and "We didn't plan for this to happen." Not personal? How is stealing my boyfriend and then marrying him not personal? And as for not planning it, that was the biggest joke of all. You don't accidentally get married and have a kid with someone. When I didn't respond, her tone shifted. She started blaming me, saying things like, "You're being childish," and "Dad is really upset about this. You should think about how your silence is affecting him." Oh, and my favorite, "You've had 5 years to move on. Maybe you should have tried harder." That one nearly made me lose it. I almost yanked the door open to scream at her, but I didn't. Instead, I waited until she gave up and left, which took another 10 minutes of her muttering insults under her breath. I could hear her car peeling out of the parking lot, and for a moment, I felt like I'd won some small victory by not engaging with her. But the truth is, her words stuck with me. That's the thing about family. No matter how much they hurt you, their words always seem to find a way under your skin. My parents, on the other hand, have been relentless with their texts and calls. They keep apologizing and begging me to talk to them, but it all feels so hollow. The thing that gets me is how they're trying to frame it like they were caught in the middle, as if they didn't actively help my sister and my ex build this double life. One text from my mom stood out, though. She said, "We thought it was better this way. You were too fragile back then to handle the truth." Fragile. That word made me see red. They didn't think I could handle the truth, so instead, they lied to my face for years and let me spiral in my grief while they played happy family behind my back. That's not protection. That's cruelty. I've also been thinking a lot about what my dad said during that conversation I overheard. He wanted to see her and the kids, because he was too old and sick to travel. I can't shake how casually he said it, like it was no big deal. Like my sister's life with my ex was just this normal, happy thing we were all supposed to be okay with. It makes me wonder how many times my parents have flown out to see them, or sent gifts for their son, all while pretending to comfort me. The level of deceit is staggering. And then there's my ex. I wish I could say I was surprised by his response, but honestly, it just confirmed what I'd already started to accept. He's not the person I thought he was. The guy I loved, the one who used to surprise me with flowers, who held my hand during scary movies because he knew I hated jump scares, that guy is gone. Or maybe he never existed, and I was just too blind to see it. The part that stings the most is how little remorse he seems to have. He didn't apologize, didn't try to explain. All he did was deflect and blame me for not moving on, as if I was supposed to just forget 6 years of my life and pretend he didn't abandon me. His words still echo in my head sometimes, especially when I'm alone at night. Maybe you're the problem. I've been trying to focus on anything else, work, therapy, even cleaning my apartment from top to bottom, but the betrayal feels inescapable. Every time I sit still for too long, my mind wanders back to those photos on my sister's Instagram. The way they were smiling, looking so content, while I was falling apart. It's like a loop I can't turn off. I've talked to my therapist about cutting ties with my family completely. She said it's a valid choice if I feel like that's what I need to heal, but it's easier said than done. My dad is sick, and no matter how angry I am, I don't want to regret not being there for him if things get worse. At the same time, the thought of sitting in a room with him, or any of them, makes my stomach churn. I keep thinking about what my life would look like if I walked away from all of them. Would it be freeing? Lonely? Both? I don't know. What I do know is that I can't keep living like this. I can't keep carrying this weight while pretending everything's fine. One thing I've decided is that I'm done being the good daughter, the one who always bends over backward to make everyone else happy, even if it's at my own expense. For once, I'm going to put myself first. If my family doesn't like it, that's their problem, not mine. I've also been toying with the idea of moving away. I've lived in the same town my whole life, and while I've built a decent life here, it's hard to escape the memories. A fresh start might be exactly what I need, but it's a big decision, and I don't want to make it out of anger or sadness. I want it to be something I do for myself, not as a reaction to them. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I know this is far from over, but at least I'm starting to see a path forward. It's not clear yet, and it's definitely not easy, but it's there. And that's something, right? Thanks for sticking with me, Reddit. Writing this has been like therapy in its own way, and I appreciate all the support and advice more than I can say. I'll keep you posted as things unfold, but for now, I'm focusing on finding peace. Whatever that looks like. Stay tuned. Final update. Hey Reddit. This is the last update I'll be posting, partly because I feel like I've said all I need to say, and partly because what happened this week feels like the closing of a chapter I've been stuck in for far too long. So, let's get into it. After a lot of hesitation, I decided to meet with my dad again. For context, he's been really sick, and even though I'm furious at him and the rest of my family, I couldn't shake the guilt of ignoring him completely. I don't want to regret anything later, and if nothing else, I needed clarity on where we stood. When I showed up at his house, it was just him. My mom and sister were conveniently out running errands. I don't know if that was planned or just a coincidence, but I was relieved. I wasn't ready to face either of them. My dad looked worse than I remembered. He was thinner, paler, and seemed so much older than the last time I saw him. He tried to smile when he saw me, but it was shaky, and his voice cracked when he said my name. I sat down across from him, not really knowing what to say. The conversation started awkwardly. He apologized again for everything. His part in the betrayal, the lies, the cover-ups. He said he hated himself for the role he played and wished he could go back and do things differently. I just sat there and listened, waiting for him to get to the point. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard. He told me he wanted to rewrite his will. I'll admit, my first reaction was confusion. I didn't know why he was bringing this up now, or what it had to do with everything that had happened. But as he kept talking, it became clear. He said he felt like he owed me something for all the pain he caused, and this was the only way he could think of to make it right. He told me he wanted to leave the majority of his estate to me. Not everything, he still planned to leave a small portion to my sister, but the bulk of it would go to me. He said it wasn't about money, but about trying to balance the scales, to give me something back after everything he took away. At first, I didn't know how to feel. On one hand, it felt like an admission of guilt, a way for him to say, I know I messed up, and this is my way of making amends. But on the other hand, it felt transactional, like he was trying to buy my forgiveness. I asked him why he thought this was the right thing to do, and his answer surprised me. He said it wasn't about right or fair. It was about giving me the chance to build a life for myself, the life I should have had if things had gone differently. He said he wanted me to have choices, whether that meant moving to a new city, starting a business, or just having the financial freedom to live on my own terms. That's when I realized something important. My dad wasn't asking for forgiveness. He knew he didn't deserve it. He was just trying to do what little he could with the time he had left. We sat in silence for a while after that. I don't think either of us knew what else to say. Eventually, he asked if I'd be willing to meet with the family lawyer to go over the changes. I told him I would, and that was that. 2 days later, I was back at his house for the meeting. My mom was there this time, but she didn't say much. She looked at me a few times like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. My sister wasn't there, which was a relief. The lawyer went over everything. And just like my dad said, the new will left the majority of their assets to me. My sister still got something. A token inheritance, really, but nothing close to what I was getting. I could feel my mom's discomfort the entire time. She didn't seem thrilled about the changes, but she didn't argue either. As we wrapped up, my dad pulled me aside. He told me he hoped this would help me find some peace, and that he was proud of me for standing up for myself. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. After the meeting, I went home and sat with everything that had just happened. I don't know if this makes me a bad person, but I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Not because of the money itself, I'd trade every penny to have my life back the way it was, but because for once, I wasn't the one being left behind. My sister has no idea about the changes, and honestly, I don't plan to tell her. She doesn't deserve to know. She's lived a charmed life for the past 5 years, supported by my parents while I was left to pick up the pieces. Let her find out when the time comes. As for me, I'm starting to see a way forward. The inheritance isn't a fix. It doesn't erase what happened or make the pain go away, but it's a tool, a way to start over. I'm already looking at apartments in a new city, and I've started applying for jobs that would let me relocate. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. I don't know what the future holds, but I know it won't be dictated by my family or my past. That chapter is closed. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that you can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond. My family broke my trust in ways I never thought possible, but they don't get to define me anymore. This is my life, and I'm finally ready to live it. Thank you, Reddit, for giving me the space to share my story. You've helped me more than you know. Take care, and if you're ever at a crossroads in your own life, remember, it's never too late to start again. 2 thumbs up.